Alright, so it has been a very long time since I have done a video, but we're going to try and get more on schedule, get them more consistent, and we're just going to start with what my September wrap-up was. So I made a TBR for the month of September, and I did complete all of those. I also read more than what I had originally had on the TBR. So we're going to jump right into what I did read, and we're just going to do it in whatever the chronological order was according to what I put into my Goodreads, because that's the easiest way for me to just do this. So the first book that I read for the month of September that was also on my TBR was Look Who's Back by Timur Vermes, and that book was about Hitler reappearing in 21st century Germany, and it's a satire and it's a comedy, and it's a really weird kind of book. You kind of find yourself feeling bad for Hitler a couple of times, and then you think, oh wait, no, this is Hitler, I'm not supposed to feel bad for him. But it is very funny, and I would recommend it for anyone who likes satire, who gets satire. Normally I don't get satire, but my sister said it was really good, so I read it and I really enjoyed it. And that's Look Who's Back. I don't have it because my sister took it back, and it doesn't belong to me. The next book that was on my TBR that was also my sister's that she took back was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This is the first and last book that I will ever read by Rainbow Rowell. And the reason for that is, although I did like some of the characters and her writing is pretty good, I can't put my money behind someone who does not do justice to what a fangirl is and who defines fandom so narrowly. And what I mean by that is there's a couple of lines in the book where the character says, oh, even though she's pretty, she's still nerdy, or it's amazing that she can be a nerd but be pretty and have a boyfriend at the same time, or if, I forget the male protagonist's name at this point, but if so-and-so could just read the books, then he would be a real nerd. And that bugs me so much, because there's so much... Because people try to define what a nerd really is or what a geek really is, and it's not something that you can define. It's really just you have a passion for something, and you can be a nerd or a geek or fangirl or fanboy about it, and that's all you need. You don't need to read the books and watch the movies and play the video games all to be a nerd and know what character said what on page 56 of book 7. That's ridiculous. And that is kind of how she was portraying being a fangirl, what nerddom is. And I can't get behind that. I hated the book for that reason. I was in the middle of liking it and not liking it, and then once I got to that point, I was like, no, done. So, didn't like Fangirl, won't be picking up anything else by Rainbow Rowell, and that's just that. The next book that I read that was also on my TBR was League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the graphic novel. I was really excited for this because I love the movie, and I think in some ways that's why I didn't care for the graphic novel, because it is very, very different, which is what everybody said. I just thought maybe it would be different in a good way, seeing the drawings and stuff, but the characters are just totally, totally different. Alan Quatermain is not anything like Sean Connery, and Sean Connery is my second husband. I love him. So to see him portrayed the way he was in this graphic novel was a letdown for me. Mina Harker was a letdown. Pretty much everything about this was a letdown. It did not live up to the movie for me, which I know is a little bit sacrilegious in some ways, but at the same time, that's just the way I feel. I did not like the graphic novel as much as I liked the movie. I did lend it out to a friend of mine who's really into graphic novels and comics and stuff, so I don't have it right now, and hopefully he enjoys it more than I did. These lovely books, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, were also part of my TBR. I did complete all 5 of them. My favorite, probably the Battle of the Labyrinth. My least favorite was the Titan's Curse. Middle book, I always have a hard time with the middle books of any series. They always kind of tend to be fillers, and that frustrates me. Overall, a pretty good series. I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more if I was in middle school or high school again, just because the writing can be a little cheesy sometimes, in a good way, but not necessarily a book that I would choose to read. It would have chosen to read at this point in time if it had not come so highly recommended from everyone. I am, however, glad that I read it, because now I can understand all of the things that people say when they reference this series, and I can move on to Heroes of Olympus and some of Rick Riordan's other series. He's got one in Egypt, he's got one with the Roman gods and goddesses. I think he's coming out with another one about Norse mythology, and I'm really into Norse mythology, so now I can pick up some of his other stuff. Yay, I finished! I did take a break in the middle of reading Percy Jackson and the Olympians, I think between Titan's Curse and Battle of the Labyrinth, because, Titan's Curse I didn't like, to read this graphic novel called The Awakening by, all their names aren't on here, just their last names. Well, their last names are Topolansky, Ekman, Lawn, and Maurer. I actually had the pleasure of meeting these gentlemen at a comic convention at my library, and they signed it for me, somewhere in here, because they were very friendly, and I spent most of the convention just sitting there talking to them, and I bought their comic, which is about zombies. And instead of being your typical zombie comic, TV show, book, movie, whatever, that starts you in the middle of the outbreak and you're right there and everything's already happened and changed, this starts you before everyone's changed. So I guess it's kind of like the prequel to The Walking Dead that's out right now that I'm not watching because I don't like The Walking Dead. Hate me for it all you want. I don't like it. But this was actually pretty good. I enjoyed this. The storyline is interesting. The characters are pretty cool. The drawings are a little hard to follow sometimes. They're very, very dark. Here's just a sample. They're very dark, and they continue to be dark all throughout. So sometimes it's a little hard to see the details, which kind of frustrates me. I like details. But regardless, I mean, the drawings are beautiful, and this book was really good. So if you see anything by these guys, Topolansky, I know one of them is named Nick. I don't know which name goes with his, though. Topolansky, Ekman, Lawn, Maurer. I'd really suggest picking this up. I also took a break between Battle of the Labyrinth and The Last Olympians to read Dark Wild Night, which is one of the books that I bought in the month of September because this was a new release, part of the Wild Seasons series. The Wild Seasons series, I love this series because the books are so bright and colorful, and there's a new one coming out and it's going to be green, and they're by Christina Lauren, two names of friends who write together. And I just love these books. They're great. And Dark Wild Night was about Lola and Oliver. And this was probably the favorite of the three that I've read so far: Sweet Filthy Boy, Dirty Rowdy Thing, Dark Wild Night. And the reason for that is because Dark Wild Night, both of the protagonists, Lola and Oliver, like comics and they like geeky things. And the way that the geek things are woven into the story worked really, really well for me. And I felt that Lola embodied what it kind of means to be in love with something geeky, way more so than what Fangirl did. But this was really great, and I can't wait for Wicked Sexy Liar, which comes out, I believe, in February of 2016. So that is an anticipated book for me next year. So if you're looking for something very romance-oriented with a little bit of geek thrown in, this is definitely it. You don't necessarily need to read the first two to understand this one, but it does help with some of the background stuff. But yeah, read these if you like romance very much. This book, I got this book as a recommendation from a friend of mine. It's Room by Emma Donoghue. Apparently this is it's got tons of awards, and people love it, and they write how much they felt it was deep and meaningful and this and yada yada. I hated this so much, to the point where I just don't really have words to describe how much I did not like it. It's written from the point of view of a 5-year-old, which is fine, but he is very smart and he has good perceptions, but he talks like he's 2. And everything is named, and his mother is really great at first, and then she kind of gets really weird. And it was just, I did not find it deep, I did not find it meaningful, I found it to be a waste of my time, and I pretty much skimmed the last few pages because I just could not take the language in it anymore. And by language, I mean how the 5-year-old narrates. This was not worth it to me. If you don't like if you're not into, I guess, like alternate storytelling, definitely don't pick this up. If you're not into 5-year-olds narrating, don't pick this up. I suggest reading any other real life story about this stuff that's happened, because this is about a mother or a young girl who gets kidnapped and is kept in this room in this room where she's repeatedly raped, and she has a kid, and her story there. And there's tons of real life stories about this kind of stuff that are way more meaningful and well written, and you can get so much more out of them than you would from this nonsense. The next 2 books I read are part of a series. They're part of the X-Hero series by Peter Clines, and I love this series. The first 2 books in this series are X-Heroes and X-Patriots, and then the next 2 were Excommunication and X-Purgatory. And this is a mashup between a zombie story and superheroes, and it's set in LA, and it's how they're surviving and how the superheroes are kind of taking care of the regular citizens, and what happens when they find this military base out in the desert, or when some of the superheroes' powers kind of go awry and they become super villains. And these are just so great, and this is my favorite out of all of them, X-Purgatory. It's hard to really kind of explain it without talking about the other 3 books, Excommunication, X-Patriots, X-Heroes, but it's really worth picking up to read if you like anything zombies, superhero-oriented. It reads like a comic book, and some people complain about that because they feel that sometimes the women are really objectified, but I don't really feel that way about it. I feel that there's a lot of strong women characters in it, and they do justice to themselves, and Clines does justice to them, and you get references to real life. And one of the things that I find really funny in the story is when they kill a celebrity that has turned into a zombie, they get points. Regular zombies are only 1 point, and then you get a certain number of points depending on how famous the celebrity was that you shot and killed as a zombie. So, love these books. Favorite of the series so far. The next one comes out sometime next year, but I will be looking for that as well. The last book for September that I read is Slasher Girls and Monster Boys, and it's a collection of short stories collected by April Genevieve Chichoke. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but she's the writer of Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea and Between the Spark and the Burn, which I love. So I had to pick this up by her, especially when the dedication page says for everyone who read Stephen King when they were way too young. And Stephen King is an autobiography author for me. I love him. I have so many of his books. I've read so many of his books. So I just had to read these, especially when I see some of the authors that I do like Jonathan Mayberry, who writes great zombie books. Or I had to pick this up because, you know, with that and just horror stories, I love horror stories. And normally I don't pick up collections because I hate them, but I had to pick this one up, and it was really worth it. There were a lot of really good stories in here that I liked, and there were some that I didn't care for, some that were a little predictable. But one of the other good things that I liked in here is that they write what their inspiration for the story was. So was it inspired by Frankenstein or Nosferatu? And it's just really cool. It is creepy. Some of the stories are very creepy to the point where I could not go to sleep at night because one of the stories creeped me out so bad. But I do recommend this for anyone who likes horror, anyone who likes Chichoke's work, and who likes collections of stuff, or who even just likes Stephen King, because this is great. And that is my September wrap-up. I really don't have a TBR for October. I'm trying to just read through what I have based on what I feel like reading. But let me know if you guys have read any of these books, if you managed to complete your TBRs, if you even have a TBR. And I will see you in the next video. Live long and prosper.